My name's Felix. I run a GTM engineering agency called Stack Optimize. We were pretty early adopters of Clay in this space. We've been going for about 2.5 years now. We were one of the first UK agencies to be certified Clay experts. We now are managing 30 clients. We have a team of 20. Our biggest clients today, some of them have started on like very small packages, 2 or 3K a month, and scaled up to 20, 30K a month retainers, just because we proved ROI really early on. We're going to send about 300,000 cold emails this month. That's going up to 700,000 cold emails next month. For the first year, it was just Pen and I, and we probably got up to about 50K MRR between us. Stay consistent. I do believe if you like stick with it and stay consistent over a long enough time frame, you can't lose.
Felix, welcome. Absolutely pumped to be speaking to you today. I recall speaking to you probably about 2 years. No, it was probably like 2.5 years ago, right? Just as you were getting started, because I remember I opened my agency, and for context, we were just doing like basic lead gen, no Clay, which is basically Apollo and this tool called Sales Handy, which is very similar to like Smart Lead and Instantly, just for the benefit of like anyone that's listening to this. But essentially, I remember speaking to you at the time, and I remember the first website that you launched, and it was just like a bunch of different sales tools. And the idea was very much like, oh, there are so many sales tools on the market. I've tried all of them, so I'll just recommend you the right ones. And then you'll do like fractional kind of like sales stuff for them, right? So I guess it required a lot of pivots. And it's just crazy because when you reflect on those days, I remember I was just sat outside with a wonky internet connection. You probably couldn't hear me or anything at the time. And it was just one of those where I know your brother Penn as well quit his job, I believe probably around the same time as you. So do you want to like start off by just explaining that transition? Like how hectic is it? And how did you manage to go from, just having that reliance on just like a full-time job's income and stability to then just find the cash flow, and also on top of that, just the time to actually give yourself some time to build out your own business from scratch? So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, exactly. And when we first spoke, that was like well before Stack Optimize is the version of itself that it is today. And you're right, my goal was to be a fractional SDR specifically for sales tech vendors. And my lead magnet was the list of sales tools on my website. I would position myself as a sales tech expert and then speak to prospects and basically advise them which demos they should be taking with which sales tools, and then kind of get a commission off the back of it from these tools. And the idea was I could set up one person on multiple meetings with multiple vendors. So that was my idea, and it's changed so much since then, obviously, and it's a completely different business to what it is today. But to answer your question, obviously, you need a bit of runway. Like, you don't want to be in a financially precarious position. So I'd saved up a little bit. I had, 6 months worth of runway. And honestly, it's easier to get going than you think. There's so much business out there, especially in our space. Every single B2B company in the world needs leads. And it's literally a case of as soon as you start putting yourself out there, whether it's posting on LinkedIn, posting on YouTube, posting on Twitter, start sending cold emails, start sending LinkedIn DMs, there's no reason why you can't land your first client within the first 30 days. And then once that first client comes in, as long as you stay consistent, like the momentum will just spiral from there and cash flow won't be an issue. Like the business models that we run, I truly believe are some of the best business models in the world. There's virtually no barrier to entry, no upfront investment required. You don't have to deal with any physical space, physical location, physical product, logistics, supply chains, any of this stuff. Anyone can get going with a laptop and an internet connection. And yeah, that's it. Like just crack on, just get stuck in.
Fair. And I mean, we talked briefly about, like the first iteration of what Stack Optimize was at the time, right? Like just connecting a bunch of like all of these SaaS sales tools with potential, people that could be curious to try out those sales tools, and you being like the middleman and making some commission out of that. What about the Clay agency space? So the actual Clay agency space as a whole, how did that come about? And how would you really define what a Clay agency does in the first place? Because most people still associate it to be just purely lead generation based kind of services, right? But I know there are a lot of agencies out there that go beyond just sending cold emails and cold LinkedIn messages, because I'm sure you've done your research on that before, right? Like what other services you could do as a part of your agency. So how did you come across Clay, and how do you see the actual Clay agency space right now in terms of like the service offerings that all the agencies are offering? Like what are some services that are kind of things that, some of the newbies and beginners to this space may not be aware of just yet?
Yeah. So I discovered Clay on LinkedIn. Eric Nowoslawski is definitely one of the earliest people I remember discovering around Clay. Shout out to him. And once I discovered it, then I just again started like posting about it as part of my LinkedIn strategy. And one of the first inbound leads I got was just someone asking me about what this tool Clay is and could I implement it for them and run AI personalized outbound campaigns for them. And at that point, I didn't have any other money coming in. So I was like, yeah, I know exactly how to do this. I'll set this up for you. And they churned after about 60 days because I had no idea what I was doing. But this was was kind of a bit of an eye-opener moment for me in that actually there's probably more money to be made and more of a legitimate business model to pursue here in going down the clay agency route. I was just seeing how much hype it was getting, and I could see the value it could bring to outbound teams, particularly when you compare it to like the old way of doing outbound. Like the difference in terms of just volume and quality is night and day. So it was at that point where I kind of pivoted and went all in on the clay agency model. And then in terms of like what a clay agency actually is, for us, 95% of our clients, we're running cold email, like clay powered cold email campaigns for. And I do think that is the best model for a clay agency because you can get recurring revenue. Businesses need leads every single month. It's not like a one and done project, and the revenue potential is significant. If you can really crack results early on for a client, then there's no reason why they wouldn't just pay you more to send more emails and generate more leads. So our biggest clients today, some of them have started on like very small packages, 2 or 3K a month, and scaled up to 20, 30K a month retainers, just because we prove ROI really early on. And then it's like, okay, once I know that if I spend 2K on cold email, I'm going to get 6K in return, then why am I not going to spend 20K on it? So we're very much focused on the outbound side of things. In the cases where we are doing more things with clay for clients, they tend to be upsells. And we're doing things like we have some RevOps plays that we're doing. We have some custom setups where we're doing things like we have one client where one of their team members is quite actively posting on LinkedIn. They got a lot of engagement. So we have a custom flow built for them where we're scraping all of their engagement, putting it into clay, and then qualifying those leads in clay to make sure they fit their ICP, and then reaching out to those individuals. So the type of workflows we're building outside of just outbound, they tend to be upsells, but they're really powerful upsells because it just allows us to get more embedded with the business, and ultimately our service becomes more sticky.
Gotcha. And I know you briefly mentioned like that client that unfortunately left you guys in the early days after like the first 60 days. Could you walk me through who the first clients were? So if you just, I'm sure you remember them literally off the top of your mind, like the first 5, the first 10 clients that gave you a shot. Who were those clients? And in hindsight, what are the kind of clients that you believe are good for the early days? And what kind of clients you probably want to stay away from as well?
Yeah. So that client was a SaaS company. They were like a pre-revenue, pre-product market fit SaaS company. So not exactly a dream client, should we say. They were paying me a 1.5K a month retainer and then commission per meeting booked. Second client was a marketing agency, which was a one-man band guy with like 2 clients. He was also paying me per meeting. Both of those completely flopped. The third client is a company called B Pro Development, and they are still with us to this day. They've been with us for, I guess it's almost 2 years now. And they're a much more established company doing tens of millions in revenue a year, very proven offer. And so that's like cold email is just perfect for them. In terms of like, was the question like best fit clients generally, or the type of clients to get started with, or?
Yeah. So in hindsight, right, do you share that perspective with me that the first clients, you just need to get the reps in? So yes, there are certain industries that you would want to stay away from. So for example, like website development or like custom software development companies, that kind of thing. You probably want to stay away from those because typically they're super saturated, very hard to like find any sort of leads for them because, you know, a lot of the time, where do you even start with those? So are you of the opinion that you typically just take on any client to start with to just get in some reps, gain some cash flow and just learn how to implement clay and all this fancy stuff? Or alternatively, would you only look for companies with a large total addressable markets that have social proof, that have a product market fit, existing revenue, you know, the typical stuff? So how would you advise in terms of the first clients for those people that are just getting started with this?
Yeah, my position on this is I would take the same position regardless of whether I'm just starting the business or where we are now. And that hasn't changed. Like for us, our ICP criteria is a big enough TAM. We'll take on any B2B business that has a big enough TAM. Specifically, they need to have at least 50,000 prospects in their TAM for us to work with them, and we'll take them on. Now, there's obviously like clients that are better or worse, and we know what clients work well and which ones don't work as well. And as long as you're like upfront with the client, you want to be realistic with your expectations. Like if there's a client that I genuinely don't think it's going to work, I will just say that to them upfront. It's probably not going to work for reasons X, Y, Z. If you do want to give it a go, I think we can give you the best shot of any agency out there because I have that much faith in our team. But I think your chances of success are probably less than great. And then it's up to the client if they want to move forward from there. So I think if you want to scale to the highest heights, you need to be pretty industry agnostic. So like I say, we'll take on any B2B business that has a large enough TAM and is willing to work with us. We'll take them on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What would you say in terms of
just on that point, what you want to avoid is you never want to have like a churn and burn mindset. You never want to take a client on. And even if you know there's a high likelihood they're not going to succeed, you should pour absolutely everything you can into making that client work. More than anything, just for your own sanity. Like no one wants to be running a business where they're not genuinely delivering value for other companies. It doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make the rest of the team feel good. You absolutely should do everything you can to get get results, even if you think it's unlikely. And we have been able to work with businesses where they have a really saturated offer, they have a really commoditized offer. Even some companies that are pre-product market fit, pre-revenue. I do believe there is always a winning angle there if you position it right, if you come up with the offer, if you come up with something different, something unique, something that disrupts the pattern, you can make it work even for those harder offers.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think it's just one kind of mindset that I've seen a lot before. And I was quite lucky when I started. I had a couple of Y Combinator startups that I had as my first clients. And in a sense, like, it doesn't mean that they have any sort of product market fit, but they do have a bit of credibility, plenty of inbound, and you can just rely on that inbound and just qualify them and retarget them and so on. So a lot of the time, that churn and burn mindset would probably not last in the long run. But when you're just getting started, you may take on some clients where at that point, you don't really know how to communicate their expectations with clients as well, right? So expectation management is something that you probably need to get quite good at in the early days as well. I think that brings us nicely to just talk about how you would acquire customers in the first place, especially like looking back at the early days. I know you mentioned LinkedIn was a big like growth channel for you, because I recall you posting, I think in the early days, you were already getting like 10 likes, 20 likes, 30 likes, which is way more than most people get when they're just getting started. So what are the main client acquisition channels? What were they in the early days? And how has that changed to now, where I know you're probably running ads, you've got like YouTube editors and, all of that fancy stuff going on as well. So how has client acquisition changed over the last 2.5 years?
Yeah. So the first year, all our clients came through organic LinkedIn content, just Pen and I posting on LinkedIn. We had like a few leads come in from the Clay experts page, a couple clients from referrals. All of those channels are great, but they're not the most scalable or predictable channels. And for a long time, we actually didn't basically run any cold email campaigns for ourselves during that first year. And we kind of got a little bit too obsessed with getting our fulfillment processes nailed down, which obviously is something you need to do. But it's very easy to kind of trudge along between sales and fulfillment and feel like you're growing the business when in actual fact, you're just kind of keeping things afloat. So if you really want to scale the business, you need a scalable client acquisition channel. So in the last 6 months, we've been starting to run our own cold email campaigns. We're going to send about 300,000 cold emails this month. That's going up to 700,000 cold emails next month. That's our biggest client acquisition channel right now. We get a few leads from YouTube. We're going to get going with meta ads in the next couple of weeks. But right now it's primarily cold email, LinkedIn content, and referrals, and a few other bits here and there.
Gotcha. And I know in the early days you mentioned, is it fair to say that LinkedIn took you guys from 0 to 1 million in revenue? I know it sounds quite glamorous, right? Because I know from speaking to your brother Penn, he mentioned to me that literally from your journey so far of going in those first 12 months of going from 0 to $1 million in revenue, you literally just focused on LinkedIn, and that drove all of that inbound pretty much. So would you say it's literally 90% of that was due to LinkedIn?
Yes. Yeah. That was basically as a result of posting on LinkedIn. I think everyone should post on LinkedIn. But again, I don't think it is the number one channel if you want to scale. A lot of it is out of your control. You can't really control how many likes or comments you get. You can't really post more than one day a week. Our engagement has really plateaued over the last 12 months. So if we wanted to increase the number of clients that we bring in from LinkedIn, maybe we could try and mix up our strategy to go more viral and get more engagement, but it's not really something that you can control in the same way that you can control cold email. Once you figure out how to get clients from a channel like cold email or paid ads, with both of those, you can just pour more money into it and you know exactly what you're going to get back from it. So I think ultimately, if you are serious about scaling your agency or any business, you should be operating across all of these channels and try and be here, there, and everywhere. But certainly if you want a scalable, predictable engine that's going to bring you in a consistent number of clients each month, cold email and paid ads would be those. Yeah,
I think Penn previously actually shared with me quite a few examples of the cold emails that you guys are sending in order to acquire customers. So I'll make sure to drop them the top link in the description down below so people can just have a look at how you guys actually pitch your offer, because all of us get tens of emails every single day from lead gen agencies that are super bad emails, right? So I think you have plenty of examples there to show how you go about actually finding those ICP clients that have a large total addressable market. So should be good. And if anyone's listening up to this point, just make sure to check that top link in the description down below. So that should be good.
Penn's giving away our secret sauce, is he?
Yeah, no, honestly, as usual, I know on LinkedIn, he posts quite a lot with the screenshots of the replies that you guys get to emails, but a lot of the time after the opt-in, of course, you do get to see the actual examples of the emails that are going out. And I think even for me, it's really educational. I keep a lot of these screenshots of from all sorts of thought leaders as such, right? In a nice little Notion doc. So one day I'll probably share that in a lead magnet giveaway as well. So stay tuned for that. We talked about acquisition already. That's really, really good. What would you advise to people that are just getting started with LinkedIn? LinkedIn. So assuming that you've got like no followers, nothing on LinkedIn, what are some real basics that people need to understand, assuming that they want to sell clay services specifically? So what's the strategy there? Do you go and find the top thought leaders and just like start commenting on their posts first to just build a bit of like a network on LinkedIn? Or how would you go if you had completely no following on LinkedIn in the first place?
Yeah, so how we did it and how I'd recommend to others that are just starting on LinkedIn is you just want to be pulling on all of the levers at your disposal. So firstly, like posting consistently every day. I would recommend like trying to join engagement pods, or if you can't find any, create one of your own. These are some of the things we did early on. We just got together with a group of other people that were posting about GTM and Clay, and we would all share each other's posts and then like and comment on each other's posts every day. It's just a great way to kind of get a good head start. And like it can be a bit depressing if you're posting on LinkedIn and no one's engaging, right? So like you want to have like just a baseline level of likes and comments that you know you're going to get every time you post, even if it's just like 5 or 10. So do that. Be active with your commenting on other people's posts is quite underrated strategy. I mean, you can even go viral with a comment if it's a good comment underneath a viral post. So just like getting your face and your brand and your name out there across LinkedIn as much as possible. And then like the quality of your posts has to be good as well. We obviously post a lot of infographics, carousels. I do think the type of posts that we post now are getting more and more saturated. Like everyone's posting like top GTM tools, Clay workflows, all of this stuff. It still works. It still gets engagement. But like if you want to blow up in this space, you'd have to do something different. You'd have to do something a bit different, a bit unique, something that no one else is doing yet, no one else has tried. So don't be scared to like experiment with new stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of waffling here. I'd say like consistency, posting every day, being as active as possible with engagement, trying to get other people to engage in your posts. Yeah, and don't be afraid to try something a bit different or a bit risky.
Yeah, spot on. I think I'll just add a couple of like things to that as well. So for me, the biggest unlock was just looking at who are the biggest thought leaders in the space that talk about the exact same topics that you want to post about, and then just making sure that you comment on under their posts every single day. Because if you do that for like, I don't know, like 10 days, 15 days, most of them would have ghostwriters or virtual assistants handling their LinkedIn accounts, right? So typically they will start commenting on your posts, regardless if your posts have any substance to it, just to return the favor, right? That's what I found personally, like with Michelle Lieb and a couple of other like big thought leaders. And it drives a lot of their like following to your posts, regardless like if your quality is good or bad, like that's, that's a secondary factor. As far as engagement pods go, I've just set one up for the Unlock Clay community that I run. And literally I'll make sure to add the link underneath. If anyone literally DMs me, I'll just invite a bunch of random strangers that hopefully make it to like minute 20 of this episode, and I'll happily invite a bunch of people into the engagement pods, and then I'll be commenting on your posts, you can comment on mine, and then you could just join that momentum there as well, because I think it's crazy how much traffic you could just bring in through just one good engagement pod, assuming that the comments are not just like well done, congrats, right? Assuming they're a bit thoughtful. So I think LinkedIn is definitely really powerful for that. I mean, some of the other things I want to talk about is just pricing of Clay services, because I know a lot of folks right now are struggling to decide whether they should go for like a monthly subscription retainer model, which I believe is what you guys are running right now, or whether you should make it 100% performance based, similar to like what Leadbird is in theory, which is Nick Abraham's agency. So I'm just curious on your side, Felix. I'm sure you've experimented with pricing models over the last 2.5 years. Like, what's your take on how, in your opinion, Clay services should be priced?
So we charge monthly retainers starting from 4.5K a month. We haven't touch the performance model, especially a model which is like solely performance based. I think more than anything, it just attracts the worst type of clients. There's a lot of work that goes into putting together Clay campaigns, from specifically if you're running like cold email as your primary offer, like setting up the infrastructure, domains, inboxes, the Clay tables, strategy, the copy. You're well in your right to charge a retainer for it. And it's the case of like, if you weren't going to do it, these companies are going to pay thousands of pounds for someone else to do it and for all of the tools to do it. And they're going to hire someone if they don't go with you. So definitely don't be afraid to charge retainers. Yeah, again, I think pay per lead model, it just attracts the worst type of clients.
The amount of times that I've heard people make excuses on that side, being like, oh yeah, but this guy said that my commission would be 20%, right? If I sell this like random thing to a random stranger via cold email. But still, yeah, performance-based, in my opinion, is probably not the one. And as you said there, like if you charge subscription-based, like monthly retainers, it's a lot more predictable income-wise, right? So you've got that stability in that. you could sleep better at night at the end of the day as well. And I guess you will be more inclined to provide the value to the client in return for that as well. Do you guys offer pilots or anything of that sort? Because I know one way that we got the first probably like 4 or 5 clients when we just started with Clay was building out free Clay tables. Because what we found at the time was people are not aware of what Clay's use cases for their business is. So by offering to build something custom for them in return for a call, you educate them on the value of Clay and like the use cases that you can implement. You give them a free Clay table, which is like a bit of secret sauce, which shows that value up front. And then that was like a kind of pilot whereby by the end of it, they can send like a couple of hundred emails, see that they're personalized, and then you upsell them into the paid offer. Do you guys run any sort of pilots similar to that? Have you run pilots before? Free Clay table offers, anything of that sort to bring in some clients through the door in the early days or right now as well?
Not in that way. Sometimes, and I think this is literally just a case of positioning. Sometimes I will, because our retainers they start with a 4-month commit and then 90-day rolling after that. And sometimes I'll just position that initial 4-month period as a pilot, especially if it's like a client where I want them to go big from a volume perspective because they have a big TAM and maybe their offer isn't the best. And I think like the only way we can make a success of it is doing big volumes, and our retainers can get quite expensive depending on how many emails we're sending. So we might do something where it's like, right guys, like we're only going to take you on if we could send 150,000 emails a month for you. List price for that is going to be X amount. But for this 4-month period, we're going to treat it as a pilot. It's going to be 30% cheaper. It's going to give us an opportunity to prove out the concept essentially. And then after that 4-month period, if you did want to continue, the price would go back to list price. So that's the only thing we've done around that.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned a minimum of 90 days, so a minimum 3-month commitment, which I think, most agencies do charge for that.
4 months.
Would you say it's important to have a minimum commitment in terms of 3 months, 4 months, or anything of that sort?
Yeah, 100%. So ours is 4 months, and then it basically renews every 3 months after that. Definitely important. Like we've had some clients that haven't seen ROI until like they're 8 or 9 months into the engagement. Especially closing from cold traffic it's always going to be harder than inbound leads, than leads that come through organic content, even leads that come in from paid ads, just because the dynamic is slightly different. It's you reaching out to them and they know nothing about you. It's not like they've been seeing your ads for weeks. All they've seen is a text on a screen in their inbox. They might have checked out your website before they hop on the call. But there's a lot more like trust building that you need to go through. You need to close that gap. And so, I mean, we're often closing deals for ourselves where we spoke to the prospect like months ago from an initial cold email, and then they're only in a position to buy then. So it's important to like set those expectations with a client before you take them on, communicate that fact. And I mean, that's the primary justification for us. It's like, you need to commit to it for 4 months. There's a good chance we won't crack the messaging in week 1. Sometimes we crack it on the first day. Sometimes it can take us, a couple of months before we found that winning campaign. For some of our clients, they haven't generated ROI until 8 or 9 months into the engagement. 4 months is like, we position that as like the optimal, like the least amount of time to prove whether or not we can make it work for you.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that not many people are aware of, but at the very least, like from my experience of running my agency for the last 2.5 years, like close to 3 years as well, it's the fact that 99% of it is just expectation management, right? Like you can have a client stay with you for 6 months, 8 months, even a year, as long as in advance you tell them like, hey, you don't have a product market fit, you don't have any social proof to start with. It's not a problem, but we can crack the messaging. And typically it starts with a phase of like, after you crack the messaging, you get them some positive replies. They're not able to convert it into meetings, right? And then naturally that's the next thing that you're up against. So that in itself can then take you a couple of extra months to then figure out how to like convert those meetings into pipeline. And then by the time they close, like the sales cycles can be really long as well. So a lot of the stuff is outside of your control. And for that reason, as long as you get them some top of funnel leads at the start, they will stay with you, even if ROI is not there 3, 4, 5 months in. But it's the same as you onboarding a new hire and then not closing within the first 2 months, right? You probably still just see those early signs that the agency cares about you. And that's all that it takes a lot of the time to just keep the client for longer than the typical, 3-month churn and burn period, right? In most cases. So what are some ways that you guys spice up the onboarding process and the first, say 6 months of having a client on board, just to reassure them, apart from, of course, the results and cracking the messaging? What are some of the ways that you really can put across the value just to prove to them hey, we've got this under control. We know what we're doing. You guys are special. We're going to jump on a call with you every week. What are some of those things that you guys do in order to reassure them and to just remind them of your competence, even though sometimes, the results may not be there in the early days?
Yeah. So our goal with every client that we bring on is obviously first and foremost to get them results and to get them to a position where they're ROI positive. If they're not at that point at any point in time, then we always want them to feel as though they're better off sticking with us versus trying to either make it work by themselves or going with a different agency. Like we want them to think if anyone can make cold email work for us, it is Stack Optimized, and it's a case of like committing to the process and having faith that they're going to crack it. And like there's ways you can do that. Obviously, your customer support has to be on point. So with all of our clients, they have like multiple contacts in their Slack channel. They have a GTM engineer, infrastructure manager, automations builder. Pen and I are in every single Slack comms channel with all of our clients as well. So they just have like lots of, support. We're replying quickly, but they have access to Pen and I if they need it. And more than anything, it's just a case of if things aren't in a good position from a results standpoint, it's a case of proactively informing the client what you're doing about that and how you're trying to turn things around to get it to a point where those results are coming in. What you want to avoid ever is a situation where it's the client that is the first person to reach out because results are bad. It's the client says, guys, we haven't got any leads this week. What's going on? You never want to be in a situation where that could happen. It's always a case of like being proactive with that communication, being the first one to reach out to the client, letting them know where we're at right now, why we're not where we want to be, and more than anything, what is our plan to get us to the mark that we want to be at.
Gotcha. And one thing that's critical for all of this is the concept which was popularized, I guess, over the last year or so, the message market fit. Do you want to talk a bit about message market fit and how you crack it for clients faster than most agencies out there? Because I know so many people right now are raving in all of these like fancy Clay communities about, what's like the secret sauce behind like launching 5 campaigns out of one Clay template and all that funky stuff. So do you just want to shed some light on what message market fit is in the first place and how you guys as an agency go about just cracking it for your clients?
Yeah, so message market fit is finding that winning campaign. That winning campaign generates the optimal number of positive replies, ultimately convert to meetings and close won deals. It's not necessarily just a campaign that generates positive replies because those are worthless if they're not converting to meetings and ultimately deals. So we're always trying to find like that winning campaign for any client. And once we do find it, then you basically cracked it. Then it's just a case of scaling it up and pouring more leads into the campaign on a monthly basis. In terms of finding it, it's the case of A/B testing. So you want to be testing as many different angles as possible. One of the things we do, depending on the size of the TAM, is in month 1, that's where we are running more campaigns than at any other point we will be throughout the course of the engagement. Typically, our sequences are like 3 or 4 step sequences. But if we're working with a client that has a big TAM, we might just run 20 or 30 one-step sequences, all going out to as many leads as possible and just really quickly trying to establish those winning messages. And let's say we launched 20 one-step campaigns and we got good results from 5 of those templates. Well, then we will start to build our sequence from those 5 individual templates. So we have 20 one-step sequences, 5 perform well. Now we build our 3 or 4 step sequences with a combination of those individual templates. We might tweak them so that the sequence is coherent. But really, it's just a case of testing, like A/B testing as many things as possible, and also like testing relevant things. Like if you just play around with the subject line, that's not really gonna have much of a difference. You want to be playing around with the offer, call to action, the value that you're providing upfront to these prospects. Those are the things that are going to move more than anything.
Gotcha. And I recall us spending, I think it was like a bank holiday Monday together in the co-working here. And I recall speaking to Penn, and Penn was showing me this Clay table. And he actually sent me a Loom video on the back of that of how you guys go about shipping 5 campaigns all at the same time from just one Clay template. It took me probably like a week. And when I say a week, I was literally like, from 4 p.m. till like 6 p.m. every day, just trying to reverse engineer the table that you guys built. And I think I've just about cracked it a couple of months ago. And it literally took forever because I wanted to make sure that the data is normalized properly, like the first name is cleaned up, the company name is cleaned up, and everything is in a coherent order. And I think it's just worth saying at this point, I've not seen other agencies be able to just launch that many campaigns from just one single workbook inside of Clay. I think I've done a video on that. I'm actually giving away the Clay templates as well, which, by the way, I'm going to share all the opt-ins with you as well, Felix. So yeah, we'll drive a bunch of traffic to that hopefully. But yeah, that's just to say that all credit goes to you and Penn for that specifically, because you just mental. I've never thought that you could actually launch that many campaigns that fast. And right now we ship 7 to 8 campaigns within the first month ourselves. And we're not even as fanatical about, testing 21 angles like you guys are. So if you test 21 different email templates, it makes it mathematically improbable that, if the TAM is there, that something you would get no leads at all in the first month. Do you want to talk about the team composition on your side as well? Because again, from the early days, as far as I understand, it it was just literally you and Penn, and it was just the two of you just doing the client service delivery, client acquisition, absolutely everything. And just walk me through the early days and how that changed the team composition right now and how you split the responsibilities internally as well.
Yeah, so for the first year, it was just Penn and I, and we probably got up to about 50K MRR between us. And we kind of had this mindset where I was like, we don't need to hire anyone. Let's just kind of grow as fast as we can, as big as we can between the two of us. We quickly found out that that is not sustainable. And as soon as we did hire our first person, it was like, why did we not hire sooner? Like if you are an aspiring agency owner, business owner, and you're currently a one-man band, hire sooner rather than later. You won't regret the decision. Now the team is set up in a way where basically Penn heads up fulfillment. I head up all things sales and marketing. And then on the fulfillment side of things, Penn's like our head of GTM engineering. Underneath him, we have 2 GTM engineer managers. And then each of them manages a pod of like 4 or 5 GTM engineers. And then each GTM engineer manages 4 or 5 clients. So it's quite labor intensive. I know there's other agencies where they have account managers managing 30, 40 clients. I'm not sure how, if they're doing an amazing job of it, fair play to them. But it's not the type of agency or the way we want to position ourselves to clients. Like we're quite a bespoke clay agency, I would say. All of our clients are on slightly different packages. Lots of them are doing custom things, which we encourage them to do. And it's part of what they're paying us for. So we find our GTM engineers, they can kind of max out at like 4 or 5 clients each before the quality of work starts to drop. And then the other good thing about this setup is we can get the pods competing against each other. So with the GTMEs within each pod competing to be the top in their pod, and then the pods competing against each other at the pod level as well.
And how many GTMEs do you have right now?
We have 9.
Which makes you probably like one of the top 5 agency employers of go-to-market engineers, right? Which is bizarre to say that. Like, I mean, it sounds quite impressive, I think, overall. What would you say in terms of, I guess by now you probably went through at least like 20 or 30 GTM engineers over the last couple of years, because I know it's very hard to find the right one, especially in the early days. How do you go about hiring the right GTMEs in the first place?
We're pretty fortunate in that it's not too difficult for us to find candidates. We can post on LinkedIn and we usually get a good flurry of applicants. In terms of finding good candidates, from our experience, you never really know until they're actually in the job. So for us, it's more of a case of, I mean, obviously they'll go through an interview process and we score them through that process, but a lot of the time you're going off of gut feeling as well. And then once they're in, you can very, very quickly tell if they're going to be a top performer. You don't want to hang on to employees too long that are below par, and you absolutely want to do everything you can to keep those top performers. In terms of like what it takes to be a good GTM engineer, it does depend on exactly what your responsibilities are within the agency, because there are agencies that have GTM engineers doing different things. Our GTM engineers are end to end. So they're doing everything. They're doing the list building, they're doing the clay tables, doing some of the strategy. The strategy primarily comes from Penn, but they do contribute a lot from that front as well. And they're handling client communication. So it's a really well-rounded job. You need to be technical, but you also need to know how to communicate with clients. And you also need to know how to write good copy. But a lot of the time it's just doing basic things right. Like being proactive is such a big one. There's so many points of failure when you're running these types of campaigns. You can have inboxes get disconnected, forget to add a unsubscribe link. There's a whole range of different things that can go wrong. So just like being really meticulous, being really proactive, being really on the ball is like one of the key traits that we're always looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to Yanni from Growth Today. In his case, he went through like a lot of trial and error, and he ended up now using an agency to hire GTM engineers for him. And I know they're doing probably like $1 million or maybe $2 million a year in revenue. So I guess like more or less they're in the same ballpark as you guys. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you guys are just hiring it yourself without using any sort of third parties in the process as well, which is pretty cool. I think this brings us really nicely to a bunch of questions that a lot of people from my circle community have dropped in the chat. So I'm just going to read a couple of these out completely at random. I promise I'll stay away from some random questions, but let's have a look at what they've got here. So what is one thing you would say to cold outbound agencies that are just starting out that could benefit them the most from the early days? I mean, quite broad, quite generic, but yeah, good luck with answering that one, Felix, no pressure.
One piece of advice? Just one thing? Anything?
Yeah, well, literally, you could give it like a 2 to 3 bullet point kind of answer to that, I guess.
I think more than anything, maybe just stick with it. Like there's going to be times where you think about giving up. Maybe you even lose faith that what you're offering is even a valuable service, if you've had a bad streak with a couple of bad clients, just stick with it, stay consistent. I do believe if you like stick with it and stay consistent over a long enough time frame, you can't lose. And as well, on top of that, always try and think about making growth plays. I mentioned this earlier in the conversation, and Penn and I are really bullish on this, and we talk about it between ourselves all the time. But again, it's easy to think you're driving the business forward just because you're busy. And a lot of the time you're busy keeping things afloat and maintaining things, especially when you're the only person in the business and you're doing everything from sales and marketing and fulfillment and all of these other things. Keeping the business afloat isn't driving the business forward. You have to make growth plays. And growth plays are doing things that put you out of your comfort zone. It's making that first hire. It's spending $3K a month on a new employee. It's investing in a new acquisition channel. If you're just starting out, pouring a couple of grand into sending cold emails for your own agency, that can be quite a daunting prospect. But you have to make those growth plays to get your business off the ground and continue to scale your business.
Yeah, I think spot on with that. I think for that kind of question, I think you've covered quite a lot. And one question comes from Manel. So he's asking, how did you optimize the tech stack as you scaled? There are so many different tools in the market. It gets really overwhelming and expensive. So how do you optimize that without just going into bankruptcy, I guess, or whatever on the financial side of things? So yeah, how do you balance the cost of tools as you grow? And especially as you start, because it's so pricey to have like a Clay account and a bunch of other tools at the same time.
So don't get too bogged down on it. Find a tech stack that works first and foremost, that works for you and also works in the context of you getting results for your clients. Make sure you are on top of your margins early. So calculate basically what it costs you to run outbound campaigns for a client. If you're running fully managed campaigns through like your own Clay account, for example, calculate what that costs in tech, in software costs, and make sure you're charging enough where your margins are solid. And I think just don't get too bogged down by the noise. Like our tech stack hasn't really changed that much in the last 2 years. We're still using Clay, we're still using Smart Lead, we're still using Get Sales, we're still using HubSpot, we're still using Claude and GPT inside of Clay, so using Bounce Band, Reune. There's always going to be like a couple new additions here and there, but especially when you're getting started, it's easy to think there's people out there way ahead of me that have a way more optimized tech stack or using tools and setups that I don't know about. Most of us in this space are using more or less the same setup, and if it feels right for you, just stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, like in hindsight, for the last 18 months, apart from taking up a bunch of free, like I'm sure you get a lot of freebies from a bunch of new like B2B SaaS tools providers, and you get like some free accounts with free email finder credits and whatnot. Aside from just taking a lot of providers up on that, the tech stack is literally exactly the same. It's still Clay, it's still the LLMs that you mentioned. Like nothing. Like a lot of it is just shiny object syndrome, like chasing, right? You're just like chasing after this like new AI SDR thing that's gonna all of a sudden book your calls and stuff. I think it's just more controlling your temptations on that side of things. Aside from cold email, how are you doing multi-channel outbound to maximize the response rate? Yeah, like how do you go about multi-channel? Email, LinkedIn, I guess a bunch of other channels all at the same time, especially on behalf of clients.
We're doing email and LinkedIn. We're not doing cold calling, although we're doing like a cold calling assist play, I guess, and it's not cold calling because it's just calling positive replies. But if we have a client that's generating a lot of positive replies, we can build flows where we like automatically push those positive replies back to Clay, find their mobile number, and then to our clients' SDRs dialers, and then they just dial the warm leads. How we think about multi-channel across email and LinkedIn. General take on this is that like if you can hit every single prospect in your TAM across every channel, do it. In most cases, that's not realistic, especially like with LinkedIn and cold calling, they're less scalable channels. So more often than not, what we will do is if we're doing email and LinkedIn for a client, if we find a valid email for a lead, they'll get sent to our email campaigns. For those other 20-30% of prospects where we can't find a valid email, those are the ones that we will then prioritize for LinkedIn. Because most of the time, clients that are running LinkedIn outbound through us are using maybe 4 or 5 profiles, and that amounts to maybe 2,000 connection requests per month. If they have a TAM of like 50,000 prospects or whatever it is, that they're not going to get through that TAM, anytime soon. So just keeping the two separate keeps things clean, keeps things easy, but also ensures like you do provide full coverage over the TAM. If you can only find email addresses for 70% of the TAM, then it still means you can get in contact with those other prospects that you can't email. And I prioritize my LinkedIn outreach for those.
Yeah, one thing that I found really bizarre over the last month is I had two clients renew where realistically speaking, I would not expect them to renew past like month 4, month 5 of their contract. And the main reason they provided for renewing was not the fact that cold email was, generating ROI, but the fact that those find mobile number enrichments inside of Clay just ping their HubSpot and ping their sales team. And for that reason, their sales team can just start calling the same people who were emailing in the first place. And just by the calling aspect of things, which is just adding one extra enrichment step into the Clay table, that alone justifies extending the contract for the next couple of months, right? So I'd say that's one thing that I probably haven't even thought about in the past, but now I'm going to double down on the cold calling side as well, because I'm sure you, as you probably already did in the past, you can generate like cold calling scripts, you can generate like the research battle cards for the sales reps, you can push it into the CRM, you could probably upsell that kind of service as well. So that's probably one final like little tip that I wanted to end this conversation on. And one final question that I wanted to ask you, Felix, as we wrap up is about your message market fit software tool, which I know you guys probably already have a wait list for. So can you tell those people that listen this far what that's all about and how they can basically go about joining the wait list for that?
For sure. So yeah, we're working on a copywriting tool. It's called StackSplit. And the main differentiator between this tool and some of the other cold email or copywriting tools generally on the market, like the Twains and the Octaves of the world, is that this tool is designed specifically to help you achieve message market fit. So with those other tools, it's more of a case of like you kind of create one campaign for your ICP. This is all about streamlining the process of creating as many campaigns as possible through it, coming up with different variants in the most meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And then just really easily being able to take those from templates to campaigns inside of Smart Lead and instantly. So we do have a wait list. If you go to the products section on our website, you'll find a tab called StackSplit. You can drop your email in there and you can join the wait list. And as soon as it's out, we will let you guys know.
Awesome. I'll drop into the guide top link in the description down below. It should be good fun for people to just get a bunch of resources. I'll also be adding a bunch of resources that I found useful from your side, because I know you guys post literally every day on LinkedIn. So I'm going to go on a mad one and just add the links to a bunch of the like newsletter articles that you guys have on Beehive and a bunch of other stuff as well. As we wrap up, Felix, where can people find you if they want to check you out a bit more? I know this will probably be posted both on your YouTube and my YouTube as one post. They'll probably have your YouTube channel already. Where else can people go and find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's our main stomping ground. So Felix Frank on LinkedIn, and our website, stackoptimize.com. If you want to check out some of the stuff on our website, we've got a bunch of resources, ebooks, courses. Yeah, check it out.
And go check out the Stack Optimize go-to-market engineer course as well, by the way. Might as well get that. I mean, it's like Valentine's Day around the corner. If you're in doubt of what to get for your loved ones.
Yeah, good Valentine's Day present for the missus, that one, I reckon. Stack Optimize.
Yeah, a bit of an impulse pet. Can't resist that. Yeah. Oh, well. That's a perfect note to wrap up on. Thanks so much, Felix. I really enjoyed this.